Word spread fast on Nexus Station. Within an hour, everyone knew about the fight. A Velthari elite warrior against a human female. It was the most ridiculous thing anyone had ever heard. It was also the most exciting thing to happen on the station in months. Dohun followed his sister back to their ship. He was talking fast, waving his hands, trying to make her understand. "You don't have to do this," he said. "We can leave, right now. Start the engines and go. No one will think less of you." Yuna opened her locker and looked inside. She had not worn her training clothes in a long time. They were folded neatly at the bottom, under spare engine parts and old tools. "I accepted the challenge," she said simply. "I will not run." "Yuna, please. I have seen Velthari warriors fight. They are killing machines, 4 arms, scales like armor. They have conquered entire planets. What chance do you have?" She pulled out her training clothes, a simple tank top and black compression shorts. They were worn and faded, but they still fit. "Do you remember," she said quietly, "when I was 12 years old, there was a boy at the gym. He was 16, much bigger than me. He said girls could not fight. He said I should go home and cook rice." Dohun remembered. He had been there that day. "Father told me to teach him a lesson. I broke his nose and 2 of his ribs. He never came back to the gym." She looked at her brother with those calm eyes. "Size is not everything, Dohun. You should know this by now." He wanted to argue more, but he knew that look. Once Yuna made a decision, nothing could change her mind. She was the most stubborn person he had ever known. "Fine," he said, his voice tired. "But if you die, I will be very angry with you. I will try to stay alive." The fighting pit was deep beneath the station, in a place where station security never went. It was a large circular arena, surrounded by seats that rose up like a bowl. Thousands of aliens filled those seats now, pushing and shoving to get a better view. The air was thick with smoke and the smell of strange bodies. Vendors walked through the crowd selling food and drinks. Bookmakers shouted out the betting odds. 200 to 1 against the human. 300 to 1. 500 to 1 if she lasts more than 30 seconds. Aliens laughed and threw their money at the bookmakers. Everyone wanted a piece of this easy bet. The human would fall in moments. It was free money. In one corner of the arena, Taro prepared for battle. He had removed his golden armor. He wanted everyone to see his body. The muscles, the scales, the power. He stretched all 4 of his arms, and his joints cracked like thunder. His clan surrounded him, giving him advice and praise. "Crush her quickly," one said. "Show the galaxy what Velthari warriors can do. Make her scream," another added. "Let the humans know their place." Taro smiled. He was already imagining how easy this would be. 1 punch, maybe 2. The small human would break like a dry stick. On the other side of the arena, Yuna stood alone. Dohun had wanted to come down with her, but she had refused. She did not need support, she needed focus. She removed her mechanic's jumpsuit and stood in her training clothes. Her body was small, but lean. Muscles moved under her skin like cables. Old scars marked her knuckles, memories of thousands of punches thrown over 20 years. She tied her hair back in a simple ponytail. Then she stretched slowly, warming up her muscles. Her breathing became slow and steady. The crowd noticed her now. Some pointed and laughed. She looked so small, so fragile. How could she possibly think she had a chance? But a few aliens in the crowd became quiet. They noticed how she moved. They noticed how calm she was. Something was not right. An old alien with 6 eyes leaned toward his friend. "Look at her hands," he whispered. "Those are the hands of a fighter." His friend looked and saw the scars, the thick knuckles, the way she held her fists. He stopped laughing. A loud horn sounded. The crowd roared. The fight was about to begin. Taro walked to the center of the arena. Each step shook the ground. He raised all four arms, and the crowd cheered louder. He was a champion, a conqueror, a living weapon. Yuna walked toward him. She did not raise her arms. She did not play to the crowd. She simply walked, her eyes fixed on her opponent. They stood, facing each other. Taro looked down at her with amusement and contempt. She looked up at him with nothing. No fear, no anger, just empty, focused calm. "Any last words, little human?" Taro asked. Yuna did not answer. She simply raised her hands into a fighting stance. Her left foot forward, her right foot back, her fists up, protecting her face. Her weight balanced perfectly on the balls of her feet. Taro had seen many fighting styles across the galaxy. He had never seen one like this. But it did not matter. No technique could overcome pure physical power. The bell rang. The crowd screamed. Taro charged forward like a freight train, all four fists raised, ready to crush, to destroy, to end this joke once and for all. The ground shook under his feet. The air moved around his massive body. He was unstoppable. He was death itself. Yuna did not move. She stood perfectly still, watching him come. Her eyes tracked his movement, calculated his speed, measured the distance. At the last moment, when his fists were about to connect with her body, she moved. She was not there anymore. Taro's fists hit empty air. He stumbled forward, confused. Where did she go? He turned and saw her standing behind him, still in her fighting stance, still perfectly calm. The crowd went silent. Yuna looked at him with those empty eyes and said nothing. She just waited. And for the first time in his life, Taro felt something cold touch his heart. It was not quite fear. Not yet. But it was close. Taro attacked again. And again. And again. Each time, his fists found nothing but air. Each time, the small human woman moved just enough to avoid him. She did not run. She did not jump away. She simply was not where his attacks landed. The crowd watched in confused silence. This was not how the fight was supposed to go. The human should be dead by now. Why was she still standing? Taro felt his anger growing. This was embarrassing. He was making a fool of himself in front of thousands. He threw faster punches, harder punches, using all four arms at once in combinations that had killed warriors twice his size. Yuna moved through his attacks like water flowing around rocks. Her feet barely seemed to touch the ground. Her eyes never left his body. She was reading him. Every small movement he made told her what was coming next. A shift of weight meant a punch. A tightening of muscle meant a kick. His body was like a book, and she had learned to read such books a long time ago. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. A good fighter does not block. A good fighter is not there to be hit. Watch, wait, then strike when the moment is perfect. She had watched. She had waited. Now she began to strike. Her first attack came without warning. A quick jab to Taro's throat, right between the scales where the skin was soft. He choked and stumbled back, his yellow eyes wide with shock. Before he could recover, she was moving again. A knee drove into his lower ribs. An elbow cracked against the side of his head. A spinning kick connected with his temple, so hard that the sound echoed through the arena. The crowd gasped. Some aliens stood up from their seats. What were they witnessing? Taro shook his head, trying to clear his vision. Pain was something new to him. Not the small hurts of training, but deep, serious pain that made his bones shake. He looked at the human woman standing before him. She was not even breathing hard. Her fists were raised, her stance perfect, her eyes still empty of emotion. What was she? On Earth, Yuna had trained in Taekwondo since she could walk. Later, She had studied other fighting styles: boxing, wrestling, judo. She had learned that every body, no matter how strong, had weak points. Joints that bent the wrong way, nerves that screamed when pressed, balance points that, when disrupted, brought giants crashing down. During the long, boring hours on the cargo ship, she had studied alien anatomy. She had read everything she could find about different species. She knew where Velthari kept their nerve clusters. She knew which joints were weakest. She knew exactly how to hurt them. Taro roared and charged at her again. This time, he was smarter. He kept his forearms wide, trying to trap her, to grab her, to use his superior size to crush her against the ground. Yuna ducked under his reach, spinning low, and drove her foot into the back of his knee. The joint bent the wrong way. Taro screamed and fell forward. She was on him instantly. 2 quick punches to his kidney, a palm strike to his ear that made his head ring, a kick to his other knee that brought him fully to the ground. The crowd was screaming now, but not with laughter. They were screaming with disbelief. Taro's clan watched in horror. Their greatest warrior, their champion, was being destroyed by a creature half his size. How was this possible? It went against everything they believed about the universe. Taro managed to get back to his feet. His body hurt in places he did not know could hurt. One of his arms hung loose at his side. She had done something to the joint, something that made it stop working right. He looked at her with new eyes, not with contempt anymore, with fear. "What are you?" he whispered. Yuna said nothing. She simply waited in her fighting stance, patient as death. Taro knew he had to end this quickly. He gathered all his remaining strength and launched himself at her. If he could just grab her once, just once, he could use his size to finish her. He would wrap all 4 arms around her small body and squeeze until her bones broke. His arms closed around her, but she was not there. She had dropped low, sliding between his legs, and came up behind him. Before he could turn, her palm struck upward into the base of his skull. Pain exploded through his brain like lightning. He spun around, blind with rage and pain, swinging wildly. One of his fists finally connected. The impact lifted Yuna off her feet and sent her rolling across the arena floor. The crowd roared. The Velthari clan cheered. Finally, the human was finished. Taro stood there, breathing hard, waiting for her to stay down. Yuna got back to her feet. Her shoulder burned where his fist had hit her. Tomorrow there would be a terrible bruise. But nothing was broken. She had rolled with the punch, letting the impact spread across her body instead of concentrating in one place. She rotated her shoulder once, testing it. It hurt, but it worked. Then she did something that made the entire arena go silent again. She smiled. It was a small smile, just a slight curve of her lips, but it changed everything. It was the smile of someone who was finally enjoying themselves. "My turn," she whispered. And she moved. Taro never saw the first strike, or the second, or the third. He only felt them. Explosions of pain that came from everywhere at once. The small human woman had become a storm. Her fists and feet and elbows and knees were everywhere, hitting every weak point, every nerve, every soft spot. He tried to defend himself, but his arms were too slow. He tried to run, but his legs would not obey. He tried to scream, but she had already hit his throat. The last thing he saw was her foot coming toward his face. The sound of Taro's body hitting the ground echoed through the arena like a drum. 7 feet of muscle and scale and pride crashed into the metal floor and did not move. His yellow eyes had rolled back into his head. His 4 arms lay spread out around him like broken branches. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Nobody even breathed. The entire arena was frozen in perfect silence. Thousands of aliens stared at the impossible scene before them. A Velthari elite warrior lay unconscious on the ground. Standing over him was a small human woman who was not even breathing hard. Yuna looked down at her fallen opponent. In the old days, after winning a match, she would celebrate. She would raise her fists and let the crowd cheer for her. But that was a different life. That was a different person. Now she simply bowed. It was a small bow, the kind she had been taught to give after every fight. A sign of respect for her opponent, no matter who they were or what they had done. Her father had been very strict about this. A true warrior shows respect, he had told her. Victory without honor is no victory at all. She straightened up and turned to walk out of the arena. That was when the silence broke. It started with one alien in the back of the crowd. A small creature with green skin and too many teeth. It started clapping its hands together slowly. Then another joined, and another, and another. Soon the entire arena was filled with the sound of applause. Not cheering, not screaming, but genuine applause, the kind given to something truly remarkable. Yuna did not acknowledge it. She walked through the crowd with the same calm expression she had worn throughout the fight. Aliens moved aside to let her pass. Some of them bowed their heads as she went by. Dohun was waiting for her at the edge of the arena. His face was pale, his hands were shaking, but there were tears in his eyes. "You crazy woman," he said, his voice cracking. "You absolute crazy woman." Yuna shrugged. Her shoulder hurt. She wanted ice and rest, and maybe another bowl of rice. "I told you," she said. "Probably not." Behind them, the Velthari clan rushed to their fallen leader. They tried to wake him, shaking his body and calling his name. But Taro did not respond. Medical drones arrived and lifted his unconscious body onto a floating stretcher. The bookmakers were in chaos. The odds had been hundreds to one against the human. Anyone who had bet on her was now very, very rich. The bookmakers did not have enough money to pay everyone. Arguments broke out. Fights started. Station security finally showed up, but only to watch and place their own bets for next time. Because there would be a next time. Word of this fight would spread across the galaxy. The human female who defeated a Velthari champion. The impossible victory. Everyone would want to see it happen again. Yuna and Dohun made their way back to their ship. The corridors of the station were different now. Before, aliens had looked at Yuna with contempt or amusement. Now, they looked at her with something else. Respect, fear, curiosity. A group of large aliens blocked their path at one point. For a moment, Dohun thought there would be trouble. But the aliens simply stepped aside and nodded as Yuna passed. "News travels fast," Dohun muttered. They reached the Han River and sealed the door behind them. Only then did Yuna let herself relax. She sat down heavily in the pilot's chair and finally let out a long breath. "Your shoulder," Dohun said, looking at the dark bruise forming on her skin. "Let me get the medical kit." "It is nothing," Yuna said, but she did not stop him. As he applied healing gel to her shoulder, Dohun asked the question that had been bothering him since the fight started. "How did you know you could win?" Yuna was quiet for a moment. She looked out the window at the lights of the station. "I did not know," she finally said. "I never know. That is not how fighting works." "Then how can you stay so calm? I was terrified just watching." She turned to look at her brother. "When I was young, Father taught me something important. He said that fear is just a feeling. It comes and goes like weather. You cannot control fear, but you can control what you do when fear comes. You can let it freeze you, or you can let it sharpen you." She flexed her bruised shoulder and winced slightly. "That Velthari warrior was strong. He was fast. He could have killed me with one good hit. But he had never fought someone who was not afraid of him. He did not know what to do when his strength did not work. His fear took control. Mine did not. Do-hoon finished applying the gel and sat back. He looked at his sister with new eyes. He had known her his whole life, but somehow he had never really seen her until today. "What happens now?" he asked. Yuna leaned back in the chair and closed her eyes. "Now we finish our delivery, we get paid, we find the next job, same as always. You know it will not be the same. Everyone saw what happened tonight. You are famous now." She opened one eye and looked at him. "I am a cargo ship mechanic who knows how to fight, nothing more." But even as she said it, she knew her brother was right. The galaxy had seen something tonight that it would not forget. A small human woman had done the impossible. And somewhere out there, other aliens were watching. Some with fear, some with anger, some with a new understanding of what humans could do. The universe was paying attention now. Taro opened his eyes slowly. The light was too bright. His head felt like someone had filled it with rocks and then shaken it hard. He tried to move, but his body screamed in protest. He was lying in a medical pod. Tubes connected to his arms were pumping healing fluids into his blood. Machines beeped around him, monitoring his broken body. His clan stood nearby, watching him with strange expressions. They would not meet his eyes. "What happened?" Taro asked. His voice was rough, like sandpaper. "How long have I been unconscious?" The warriors looked at each other. None of them wanted to speak. Finally, the oldest one stepped forward. His name was Gorn, and he had served with Taro for 20 years. They had conquered planets together. They had killed enemies side by side. But now Gorn's face held something Taro had never seen before. Shame. "You have been unconscious for 6 hours, Gorn said quietly. "The medical drones say you will recover fully. But it will take time." Taro's memories were foggy. He remembered the cantina. He remembered the small human. He remembered challenging her to fight. Then everything became confusing. Flashes of movement, explosions of pain, a small fist coming toward his face. "The fight," Taro said slowly. "How did it end?" Again, the warriors looked away. Gorn's jaw tightened. "You lost." The words hit Taro harder than any punch. He tried to sit up, but his body refused. Lost? He had never lost a fight in his entire life. He had killed creatures 10 times his size. He had conquered armies. "That is not possible," he said. "That human? She was tiny. She was weak. She was nothing." "She was none of those things," Gorn said. There was something new in his voice, something that sounded almost like respect. "We all watched, Taro. We all saw what she did. She moved like nothing we have ever seen. She knew exactly where to hit you, exactly how to hurt you. She was not weak. We were wrong about her." Taro lay back in the pod and stared at the ceiling. His whole life, he had believed certain things about the universe. The strong survived. The weak died. Humans were the weakest species in the galaxy. These were facts, as certain as the stars in the sky. Now those facts were broken, just like his body. "Where is she now?" he asked. "Her ship is still docked at the station. They leave in a few hours." Taro was quiet for a long time. The machines beeped. His clan waited. "Help me up," he finally said. "Taro, the medical drones say you should rest. Help me up." It took 3 warriors to lift him out of the pod. His body was covered in bandages and healing patches. Every step sent waves of pain through his muscles. He would walk through it again. He made his way slowly through the station. Aliens stopped and stared as he passed. They whispered to each other. Some of them laughed quietly. The great Velthari champion, broken by a human female. It was the biggest joke in the galaxy. Taro did not care. He had only one thought in his mind. He found her in the same cantina where it had all started. She was sitting at a small table in the corner, eating a bowl of rice. Same seat, same food, as if nothing had happened. The cantina went silent when Taro entered. Everyone waited to see what would happen. Would there be another fight? Would there be revenge? Yuna did not look up from her food. Taro walked toward her. Each step was agony. By the time he reached her table, his legs were shaking. She finally raised her eyes and looked at him. Her expression was the same as before. Calm. Empty. Unreadable. Taro stood there for a moment, looking down at this small human who had destroyed everything he believed about himself. Then, slowly and painfully, he lowered himself to one knee. He placed all 4 hands on the ground and bowed his head until it nearly touched the floor. The cantina gasped. This was the Velthari gesture of total submission, the acknowledgement of a superior warrior. No Velthari had ever given this bow to a human before. I was wrong, Taro said quietly. About you, about your species. I called you weak. I called you prey. I was blind and foolish. He raised his head and looked at her with his yellow eyes. There was no anger in them now, no contempt, only a genuine desire to understand. How, he asked, how is this possible? Your body is soft. You have no natural weapons. How did you defeat me? Yuna put down her chopsticks and considered his question. She could see that he was truly asking, not mocking. He wanted to learn. On my world, she said, we have a saying. It is not the size of the dog in the fight. It is the size of the fight in the dog. Taro frowned. I do not understand. It means that spirit matters more than strength. It means that the will to keep fighting, to never give up, to find a way when there is no way. That is what makes a true warrior. You have strength. But my people have been fighting since we crawled out of caves, with rocks in our hands. We have been fighting each other, and everything around us, for thousands of years. Fighting is in our blood. She picked up her chopsticks and continued eating. Never underestimate humans, she said between bites. It is a mistake you will only make once. Taro stayed kneeling for a long moment. Then, slowly, he stood up. His body still hurt. It would hurt for weeks. But something had changed inside him. I will remember this, he said. Perhaps it is time for the galaxy to see humans differently. Yuna shrugged. Tell them whatever you want. I have cargo to deliver. Taro almost smiled. Then he bowed one more time and limped away. 2 hours later, Dohun started the engines of the Han River. The little cargo ship lifted off from Nexus Station and turned toward the stars. Well, Dohun said, that was an interesting stop. Yuna sat in the co-pilot seat, flexing her bruised shoulder. It hurt less already. She healed fast. It was fine, she said. Dohun laughed and shook his head. Just fine? You changed how the entire galaxy sees humanity, and it was just fine? Yuna looked out at the stars streaming past. Somewhere out there, aliens were telling stories about what had happened. Stories about the human woman who brought down a giant. Stories that would spread from station to station, planet to planet. Maybe humans would be treated differently now. Maybe they would be respected. Or maybe things would stay the same, and she would have to teach another lesson someday. Either way, it did not matter to her. Do we have any food left? She asked. Dohun pointed toward the back of the ship. Rice and vegetables in the storage unit. Yuna stood up and headed toward the food. Her shoulder hurt. Her body was tired. But she was alive, and she was hungry. That was enough. Behind them, Nexus Station grew smaller and smaller, until it was just another point of light among billions. But the story of what happened there would never grow small. It would only grow bigger. Because the galaxy had learned something important that day. Humans were not weak. They had never been weak. And now, everyone knew it. The space station floated in the darkness, like a metal spider. Thousands of ships came and went every day. Nexus Station was not a nice place. It was dirty, dangerous, and full of creatures from 100 different worlds. But it was the only place to buy fuel in this part of the galaxy. Yuna wiped the grease from her hands and looked at the broken engine part. She had been working for 6 hours without rest. Her back hurt, her fingers were sore. But the ship needed to fly, and she was the only mechanic on board. Yuna, her brother's voice came through the speaker. "We are docking in 10 minutes. Clean yourself up." She did not answer. Dohun always worried too much. He was the captain of their small cargo ship, the Han River. It was not a pretty ship, but it was their home. They had been flying together for 3 years now, carrying goods from one star system to another. The station's docking bay was crowded with aliens of all shapes and sizes. Some had scales, some had fur, some had too many eyes or too many arms. Yuna walked through them without looking. She was used to being the smallest person in any room. Humans were rare in this part of space, and most aliens thought they were weak. Dohun caught up with her near the main corridor. He was taller than her, but he had the same tired eyes. Running a cargo ship was not easy work. "Be careful here," he said quietly. "This station has a bad reputation. Don't talk to anyone. Don't make trouble." Yuna almost laughed. "When do I ever make trouble?" "I mean it. Some of these aliens hate humans. They think we are easy targets." She nodded but said nothing. Her stomach was empty, and she wanted food more than conversation. The cantina was loud and smoky. Strange music played from somewhere in the ceiling. Aliens sat at long tables, drinking colorful liquids and speaking in languages Yuna did not understand. She found a small table in the corner and ordered the only human food they had, a bowl of rice with some kind of vegetable she did not recognize. She ate slowly, watching the room. It was an old habit. Her father had taught her to always know her surroundings. He had been a martial arts teacher back on Earth, and Yuna had trained under him since she was 4 years old. By the time she was 18, she was a national champion. By 20, she had won medals in 3 different countries. But that was a long time ago. Now she fixed engines and delivered cargo. Fighting was just a memory. The door of the cantina opened with a loud bang. Everyone turned to look. 4 massive aliens walked in. They were Velthari, one of the most feared warrior species in the galaxy. Each one stood over 7 feet tall. They had gray scales covering their bodies and 4 muscular arms. Their eyes were yellow and cold, like the eyes of a snake. The biggest one walked in front. His name was Taro, though Yuna did not know this yet. He wore golden armor that showed his high rank. His clan followed behind him, laughing and pushing smaller aliens out of their way. They had just returned from conquering a small colony on the frontier. They were in a good mood. They wanted to celebrate. Taro's eyes moved across the room, looking for entertainment. Then he saw Yuna. He stopped walking. His yellow eyes narrowed. Then he started to laugh. "Look," he said loudly, pointing at her with one of his 4 hands. "A human, a tiny human female." His clan laughed with him. Other aliens in the cantina joined in, though some looked nervous. Yuna did not look up. She continued eating her rice. Taro walked closer. He was enjoying himself now. Humans were known across the galaxy as weak creatures. Soft skin, no claws, no natural weapons. Most aliens wondered how they had survived at all. "Tell me, little creature," Taro said, standing over her table. "How does it feel to be the weakest species in the galaxy?" Yuna chewed her food slowly. She still did not look at him. This made Taro angry. He was not used to being ignored. He slammed one of his massive fists on her table. The metal bent under his strength. Her bowl of rice jumped and spilled. Now Yuna looked up. Her eyes were calm. There was no fear in them. This confused Taro for a moment. "I was eating that," she said quietly. The cantina went silent. Everyone was watching now. Taro leaned down until his face was close to hers. His breath smelled like something dead. "Your people are nothing," he growled. "Soft, weak, pathetic. You survive only because stronger species allow it. You should thank me for even speaking to you." She just looked at him with those calm, empty eyes. Taro straightened up and looked at his clan. They were grinning, waiting for the show. "I think," Taro said loudly so everyone could hear, "that this human needs a lesson. I challenge you to formal combat, here, tonight, in the fighting pit." Whispers spread through the cantina. A formal combat challenge was serious. It could not be refused without great shame. But everyone knew how this would end. The human would be destroyed. Dohun pushed through the crowd, his face pale. "Please, great warrior, my sister meant no disrespect. We will leave immediately." "Your sister?" Taro laughed. "Then watch carefully, human. Watch what happens to the weak." Yuna stood up slowly. She was so small compared to him. The top of her head barely reached his chest. She looked like a child standing next to a monster. "I accept," she said. The cantina erupted in noise. Aliens shouted and laughed. This was going to be entertaining. Taro smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Tonight, little human. Try not to die too quickly." He turned and walked away, his clan following behind him. Dohun grabbed Yuna's arm. "Are you insane? He will kill you." Yuna looked at her spilled rice on the table. "Such a waste." "Maybe," she said, "but probably not."